Welcome back to the Life Church. Thank you for joining us on today. As I sit here from the safety of my home office and I talk about us being in church, something just doesn't seem or feel quite right. But then I have to continue to remind myself that the church truly is wherever God and his people connect. And so I'm just grateful to have this opportunity to connect with you on today. We really do appreciate you tuning in and checking us out. Hey, don't turn off just yet. We haven't even got started. I promise you, what we have in store for today is going to be fire. So please stay tuned. Hey, whether you are joining us, kicking it in your crib, if you get ready to cue out, whether you are by yourself or at the bedside of somebody who's in the hospital, I just want to once again thank you for taking the time to join us on today. I want you to do me a favor. Would you share this video, like our video, subscribe to us if you're on YouTube, share it if you're on Facebook. We want this video to go far and wide. We are blessed, so blessed um, to have an ever increasing audience. Our audiences are anywhere from 1,500 to 3,500 people who are watching us and tuning in and checking out our content weekly. And to God be the glory for that. And we've got some exciting things planned to continue to grow our church in this very uncomfortable, unusual, unsettling season of being stuck inside. How do you grow a church when you're not able to go out and connect with people? So that's one of the things that we've been strategizing and seeking God's spirit for help on. And I believe that we have some things that are really going to be effective. Hey, I want all parents, all grandparents, real quick, do me a favor and get your child, your grandchild, because at 2 o'clock, we're going to have our children's church today at 2 o'clock. We're going to make sure that we take the time to be a blessing to our children. Aren't our children worthy of our investment? Aren't they worthy of our time? Aren't they worthy of us pouring into them? I believe that they are. So at 2 o'clock on today, we are going to have a time where kids can come. Parents, if you're not on our email list, go to our email page. You can email us at bemorelifechurch@gmail.com. And there you can get connected with our children's church. They can get all the activities and so forth that will bring the word of God to them where they are. We don't want to be a one size fits all kind of ministry. We're trying to do all we can to be as creative as we can be during this season of being stuck inside and in the virtual space. All right, all right, all right. I hope everybody's here. Yes, I see some people checking in. Come on, like this video. Let's boost our likes. Come on, YouTuber, subscribe to our page. Yes, I see you all commenting. All right, I see you there checking in. Yeah, let us know you're here. Glory be to God on behalf of our Life Church family, as well as those who are visitors. Visitors, if you're a first-time viewer, we so much appreciate you, and we want to be a blessing to you. So if you have anything that you're concerned about, you can always call us and text us there at the number on the screen. We will be glad to support you in any way we can. If you need some things right now, I know I was just having a conversation with somebody and said, well, there's some supplies like toilet paper that seem to be more available now, but some things like sanitary wipes and so forth don't seem to be as available. Hand sanitizer, whatever you might need, please let us know so that we might be a blessing to you. All right, we're going to get started with worship today. Before I go a bit more further, let me ask God to guide us in our time together. God, we are thankful that you have given us life. We're thankful that we can remain connected and, most importantly, connected to you. Father, in this time, we ask that you would breathe on us today so that we might be edified, so that we might be encouraged, so that we might be pushed into a deeper place of purpose. This is our prayer in the one and only name of Jesus. Amen. All right. All right. As we get started today, we are going to, yes, Lupita is going to bless us. I think she has something special and different planned for us on today. So, Lupita, I'm going to ask at this time that you take it away as we set the atmosphere for worship. God bless you, everybody.
Happy Sabbath, y'all. So for this week, I decided to do worship with my family. So welcome to our Lord. You're not a God.
All right, all right, all right. Well, thank you, Lupita and family, for reminding us that God has no comparables. There's none beside him. There's none next to him. There's nobody like him. There's nobody that can take his place. I could go on and on about how great and how incomparable and how immeasurable and how unstoppable our God truly is. Once again, everybody, thank you for tuning in and checking us out today. Make sure you do us a favor and like, subscribe to this video, and please do us a favor and share this video so that we can take this to all places of this nation and beyond. That's the beauty of social media. You can be in one place and connect with people all across the globe. I'm telling you, everybody, what we have to share in part 2 of this conversation is absolutely fire. So if you got somebody in your house right now that got something else on their screen, say stop what you're doing, because this is about the ruin. Okay, y'all know I'm a frustrated rapper. Y'all pray for me. But anyway, I'm telling you, everybody, this is a just an incredible blessing that we have in store for you today. So I want to go right back into our conversation that we were having on the double pandemics of COVID-19 and 1619. Everybody, please prepare to be blessed. Flag. What does a Confederate flag mean to you as a black man?
Basically, to answer that real quickly, when that noose was in the garage of Darrell Bubba Wallace, and then the FBI put their spin on it. My, the jury's still out for me, but my question is, if anybody saw it, why did they leave it up there? That meant that they believed in it. And then hashtag Confederate culture. But my feelings is this. 2 weeks ago, I took a mental health day. I'm teleworking from home. And as I sat and watched the memorial of George Floyd and then the funeral of George Floyd, as I listened to Reverend Al Sharpton, and he had asked the congregation to stand in silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I stood in my room for that amount of time. And I had an overflow. Pastor Washington, I told him, he knows, I have what's called a weeping anointing. And sometimes there's just an overflow. I get full and it just comes out. I stood there and just wept for 8 minutes and 46 seconds while we were silent. I have black rage. I'll be honest with you. I have black rage. And I've had it since 1968, since the day I sat in my living room in Youngstown, Ohio, where I grew up watching the 68 Mexico. And watching Tommy Smith, Johnny Carlos take the winner's podium. Smith first place, gold. White Australian, Peter Norman, silver. John Carlos third. And they had on black socks, a black glove, and they did the Black Power salute. That was the shot that was heard around the world. Tears welled up in my eyes. Something happened in my spirit. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know, I couldn't put my finger on it. But from that day forward, I read and so forth. I looked, I watched movements, civil rights movement, human rights movement, Black Power movement, Black Arts movement, Latino farm workers, Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. I just watched all of that. I have black rage to this day. I refuse to watch I had posted the lynching tree, the lynching knee, same results. I refuse to watch it because I'm careful what I put in my spirit. I talk to brothers and they say they still haven't gotten over that yet. They can't get it out their heads from watching that. But I'll end here. I have black rage, and I've always had black rage. But I want the listening audience to understand this. I have black rage creatively. You know, militancy is not a causative, it is a response to status quo. I have black rage creatively. What I am doing now, I am listening out for reasoned and seasoned voices. Right. Who have strategies and solution-oriented things to say and to implement. I'm not running after people's reactionary, verbiage and vitriolic talking and so forth. Now, don't get me wrong. People can rant, they can vent, they can yell, and we should never try to stifle dissent. However, I ain't chasing rabbits. I have black rage creatively. So I'm in my reinventing of myself during COVID-19. I'm cogitating on and I'm implementing what I can do. I must be a transformative voice for those who are living on the outskirts of hope. I must be a person who puts my money where my mouth is. So my wife and I are supporting families who are unemployed because of COVID, who have children. I'm having black rage creatively. That's my response.
Absolutely, sir. All right, Bishop, as an emotional, spiritual, and psychological health expert, sir, what say you about black rage or black people's anger, the anger that many of us are holding at this time?
Listen, first of all, I can't, I don't know what I can say to come behind Elder Ronnie. But I've been telling people, we can have anger, and the anger should afford and motivate our choices. Similarly, as I shared earlier on, having my own concern about the pandemic and the medical aspects of it, I was telling some colleagues of mine, I said, this is a young people's protest. I want to be a part of the think tank because I'm a little older, but utilizing my anger to filter my thoughts and my thinking, and how I can direct some of this energy. Because one thing that we saw a lot of reaction. I think Elder Ronnie was saying the same thing. We saw a lot of reaction, and there was no direction. And I'm interested at this point in my life to be a voice and not an echo. And I think that's what we need. I think we need a prophetic voice. We need a voice of liberation. We need someone to get out in that front and kind of give some direction to all of this energy. If not, we're just repeating the same patterns of the past with no clear strategy. Just let's riot for rioting's sake, or let's protest for protesting. But what's the strategy? Where's it going? Where are we going with it? So the outrage is real. The outrage is real. Similarly to what I just heard when George Floyd cried out for his mama, I can't get past that. In that whole clip, that part right there is the part that will probably stay with me probably the remainder of my life. To hear a full-grown black man broken down to the point where he's crying out for his mama. Wow. That's painful.
Wow. So, Bishop, as you mentioned about strategies, one of the strategies that we've been hearing a lot about is the whole effort to defund or in some ways deconstruct the police forces or police departments in different cities and states. Pastor Washington, I want to come to you now, sir. What say you about this whole idea of defunding the police?
So I don't know if I have a comprehensive answer on that, but I would say I don't know if that's the solution. To totally defund people who are meant to protect and serve that haven't been necessarily all of them. And I do want to say this. I've never been into broad brushing. Every white cop ain't bad. Every white cop ain't out there killing, brown and black men. But at the same time, I just don't know if the answer is let's totally defund all police precincts in America and let's see how that goes. I don't want to see how that goes. I think there, ought to be a more collaborative effort. One of the things that I think has caused people groups and particularly America problem for years, and that is not communicating. Not only not being able to communicate, but having, I forget the name of the book, but one author said communication happens not just when you talk, but also when you listen. If the only thing you're doing in communication is talking, but not listening, it's not communication. And so I think a more collaborative effort needs to be done to figure out the solution to what is going on in this country.
Okay. All right, sir. All right, I'm going to kick it to you next, Elder Vanderhorst. We're talking about strategies. One of them is deconstructing or defunding the police, however way you want to go with the nomenclature. Talk to us about that, or maybe some other strategies you see us being able to take as Black people to provide a meaningful response in this time when it seems like there's an opening that God has allowed in this particular season of 2020.
Just as in all of the uprisings that we have seen, there have always been provocateurs, the hidden hand that comes in to break the window, to fan the flames of the fires that are actually going on. I believe that when there are salient discussions that go on, there are folk who go to the extreme. The pendulum swings all the way to the end to divert and keep us away from the main thing. So defund the police to me is an extreme of that pendulum so that it hijacks the actual conversation as to what really needs to be done. I do believe that the issue has to deal with changing policy. I do think that the issue has to also do with the allocation of money. For example, all of the money that is spent on militarizing the police with buying from the military as far as armored cars, and the different weapons that should not even be used in the inner city. I think that there should be a reallocation of those type of monies that are part of the problem and not part of the solution. So when we look at it holistically, I believe we do have to look at the total picture, but it has to be one that is balanced, that deals with policy, that excess as far as waste or funds being diverted in areas that could go into healthcare and mental health centers that used to be fully funded when I was growing up and certain things like that. But not only simply from the police, in other areas where the waste is going on. But the pendulum, they're taking away from the main thing. And the main thing is the actions, the behaviors, the policies that keep in place. For example, what is that policy that Tim Scott and the Republicans refused is a qualified immunity. They don't want to deal with that one, where you have police officers who make infractions, but they got immunity and so forth. So I really think that defunding the police in that text or quote is an actual diversion for them to continue on doing the way they've been doing things.
Right, sir. All right, Dr. Davis, you mentioned earlier about different colleagues coming to you and you having to educate them about issues related to race and what our experience has been like here in America. So I want to come back to you and ask you about that. What do you say when Caucasians, when white folks come to you and say, well, what can we do? Or what do you want us to do? Or what should we learn? Or when they have these conversations with you, for the ones that may be even open or to approach you or to have that dialogue with you, what do you say to white persons right now about what's going on?
And I don't know if you brothers have experienced this, but I'm gonna make that statement. I have some white friends. And I've got telephone calls, and sincerely, these are my friends. And I've gotten telephone calls from them, and they've asked that question, what is it? And what I've decided, I think, Elder Vanderbilt said it, I think we gotta have there has to be some type of two things. I think Professor Washington said this about communication. I don't need to get into a soliloquy and recap every slight that I've experienced or my particular viewpoint on the situation. What I've started doing is asking, well, what do you know? How do you see this? Because the understanding is that, yes, they are, just as I'm a product of my environment, their thought process is a product of their environment. Yeah. And most of our environment is actually subconscious. We don't necessarily take in where the cues are coming from. They become kind of background, and we begin to think, well, that's just the way it is. And so what I started doing is just asking, well, tell me, what do you think? What do you think? And then trying to get them to understand, well, let's think about how would you feel if a situation such as if your child was pulled over and told that, well, the reason we pulled you over because you fit this profile. And it doesn't happen every time they drive, but it happens every time they're in a certain place where their appearance and their appearance is discordant with the expectations of that particular space. Yeah. See, I recognize that my very presence in this society is discordant to a lot of people, and they don't even know why. Why is it that you can't figure out that? Why is it that when I go to a professional meeting, they can't figure out that the guy who's talking has a black face makes you kind of pause and think? Why is it when I show up on my campus, you look at my ID a little bit harder? If I have my white coat on, you may wonder, okay, well, this must be a technician or something. This couldn't be a professor. When I sit in the meeting, oh, he's not a department chair. He's not an assistant. Why is he here? That kind of thing. And I begin to ask them, well, what would it be like if your very existence began to be questioned at every turn? When I started asking questions that way, people go, Now, the other part of this, so that's one way. Ask them questions. The other part of this is leveraging a relationship. Like I say, I have friends who are white. I've got long-term friends who are white. And these are good brothers. One of whom sat with me when my mom passed away. The person who sat with me before they took her body away was a white guy from Mississippi. Wow. Okay? Sat with me for hours and cried with me that day. So recognizing that person is a person like me, as we have some commonality even with our differences, but the Lord has provided me a relationship with him that he may not get anywhere else. So I understand I have a calling, because God is faced, this is a ministry space where I have this calling where I have to start leveraging this relationship. So I have had conversations with long-term friends here recently where I said, you know what, I owe you an apology. In our relationship, we had this experience. You said this, or you had this attitude, and I was troubled by it, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to talk to you. Now, it's not my responsibility to justify the fact that what you said was a problem, but I do have a responsibility to make the right. When you may not have other folks may not have that kind of access to you. So I have to use, I think this is that strategic use of rage I just heard. You know, I've got to use this rage. I've got to get past my anger of having to do this, but recognize this may be a commission from God in some of these interactions I have. So, so I've been trying to take this, and it gets wearing. It's tiring. I would love to just walk through my life and not have to deal with it. My introversion would allow me, if I could just disconnect and just kind of wander through life like I see some people just kind of going about their business. That's not my call. Not my call. And maybe the prophetic utterances that this world needs to hear may not be from a state. It may not be from somebody's writing, but a prophetic utterance may come from one of those interactions. Because just like this virus spread, I don't know who that interaction with that person, I don't know who they come in contact with. And if I give them a viewpoint that changes them, just as this virus has gone viral, this is really the only way this whole system is going to change.
All right, Dr. Davis, you said something I want to touch on. You talked about reframing questions and offering it back to the individual. And Bishop, you laughing because you know I'm coming to you with this one. You do that with me all the time, sir. So I want to talk about that, and also I want to bring this into the church world, because we have seen that racism, we have not been able to escape it in the church. And we have seen recently that many of the mainstream personalities and even some megachurch pastors have adopted the Billy Graham strategy of dealing with civil rights, where he was quoted as saying something to the effect that, my task is to just to deal with people's soul, but I leave the person in God's hands, and he kind of absolves him from having to insert himself into any responsibility to speak on behalf of civil rights and so forth. And so, Bishop Richardson, I want to come to you, sir. That silence has been very noticeable, and I want you to talk to us. And then, Elder Vandals, I'm coming to you next. What do you feel like that silence says?
And you're talking about our silence, or are you talking about?
I'm talking about mainstream personalities who are Caucasian, mega church pastors who are Caucasian. Some of them have issued some, cursory statements and so forth, but there seems to be this paucity or this attempt to appease both sides from individuals in our culture who want to engage us and receive Black support, Black dollars, Black behinds in the seats. But now that Black bodies are killed in the streets, they seem not to want to really address those things in any meaningful, substantive way that might cause them to risk popularity. What's up?
Well, I think that's because the 20 or 30% of white folk that remain in the cornerstone of their church give the most money. And you're talking about their economic power. And so their face, they may present as having a large proportion of people or persons of color in their congregation, but when they go in that back room and they do the tally, the money behind those ministries comes from those donors. That family, that person with that last name in their community. And so the public voice of what's happening, if it's not to appease the right or the other side, they're going to keep silent because they don't want to mess with that donor base. That's what's keeping the mega ministry afloat. That's what's keeping the missions, going. And not to say that the black dollar and stuff is not powerful, but comparatively, it doesn't measure up to that donor base, and so they don't want to mess with that. They don't want to mess with the political power that's associated with that. You know, the backdoor deals of the evangelicals in this presidency. You know, let's talk about that. You know, the second chair of the White House being representative of that evangelical base, and what's not being said. And what strikes me so much about the politicalness of that is, you know, the primary argument being this concern for abortion, you know, termination of life. But, you know, why am I going to build a house on, you know, this pro-life argument when we have no concern or regard for afterlife? So, you know, so we build the strength of our argument on this preservation of life, but we're so quick in the same community, in the same congregation or groups to take a life. It's systemic. It's still systemic, and it's in our churches, and some of our Black churches are complicit.
Yes, sir. All right, Elder Vanderhorst, I'm gonna kick it to you next, sir. What does this silence say amongst many mainstream individuals in the Caucasian space, whether it be pastor or megachurch or worship leaders or bands and so forth, who seem to be very hesitant to want to engage the uncomfortable issues of race?
Somebody said silence is not always golden, sometimes it's merely yellow.
Yes, sir.
And there is a fear. Bishop said it. We know what the bottom line in this country is, and that's the dollar. They call it the bottom line. And so therefore, there is a lot of fear that actually goes on. But then there's something also operating, now I'll say this very quickly, and that is this. White supremacy is a seducing doctrine of devils. We are operating in two realms. We are operating in the spirit realm, because we are not wrestling against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in the high places. And then we are also operating in the natural realm. So when we look at this, we have to look at this in both realms. There are two warfares going on, in the spirit realm and in the natural realm. Well, in the spirit realm, the seducing doctrines of devils with this white supremacy and racism is not going anywhere. As long as there are devils, there will be racism.
Yes, sir.
When it comes into the natural realm, we must, anytime it rears its head up, we must go at it. And we must do righteous battle, but our warfare must be principled. You know, and so there are a whole lot of people who are just fixated on the natural realm, what's not happening, what's going on, and have no clue about spiritual warfare.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes,
No
sir.
clue at all. And unless our people understand spiritual warfare and what's actually happening in the spirit realm and the things that are going on. I mean, probably the best resource I've ever read about spiritual warfare is by Dr. Cindy Trim. It's called Rules of Engagement.
Yes.
This sister, my goodness, you know, but to really understand what's happening so that we can, and I put this very innocently, stay in our lanes. For example, some of us have a prophetic voice where we must speak truth to power. And then there are many of us who have operate in the natural realm that we must speak truth to the powerless. So understanding the calls on our life, whether we are supposed to engage the spirit realm in the power of the Holy Spirit, or we are to engage in the natural realm in the power of our Spirit. But you have a whole religious system who doesn't give a hoot about spirit realm or natural realm. It's their will being done on earth right now, but I say this is their reward.
Yes, sir.
So Pastor Washington, we talked about this a little bit before, and I told you my feelings about this and how, I was not surprised, but saddened by some of the silence amongst some individuals who exist within the space of mainstream Christianity. What say you, sir, about this noticeable, deafening, I would say, silence that we are seeing right now among so many?
Can he throw in the black church too?
So I got a lot to say in this place of space, and I'm gonna try to limit it if I can. But my mind is swirling about church as well as what you just said. Let me address that if I can real quick, and then circle back. One of the things you asked, what does it say about people's silence? To me, it says that if the price is right, you could be bought and sold. Economics, money, finances, I think those are one of the 9 things that Vanderhorst iterated earlier when he talked about the avenues of white supremacy. And, for me, when I see people being silent that should be speaking, it says you can be bought and sold. And I don't care how much money you pay me, you can't pay me enough to not be my authentic self. You can never. You can give me $10 million. It's not enough money to make me not say or to make me say things that's not going to allow me to sleep well at night. And I think for a lot of these organizations, ministries, churches, man, they're giving money to allow them to remain on a certain platform, keep their money, et cetera, et cetera. Vanderhorst said, what about the black church? I want to say, too, on this side, for the first time since these modern lynchings have been taking place, for the very first time since the modern lynchings have taken place, the people of God in the black community have not been able to come together to worship. In the 50s and 60s, when these things were going on, even during the time of chattel slavery, we were used to coming to church, to pray together, to cry together, to sing together, to ask God, what are you doing in the midst of our struggle? We have not been able to do that during this pandemic, which has been incredibly challenging in many ways. I heard on CNN, maybe it was MSNBC, that one of the things that they're suggesting that is missing from the protests that are going on right now is prayer. In the 60s when they used to march, in the 50s when they used to march, they would not go out unless somebody offered a word of prayer. These brothers and sisters now, they going out guns blazing and just letting the chips fall where they may. And I think that, to respond to what I said earlier, after you finish being angry, after you get out of your feelings, you got to get to a point where you understand as a believer that God is your source. And the question is, God, what are you saying in the midst of these times? God is always on the side of the underdog, in my humble opinion. You can't read the Bible without noticing he's on the side of the underdog. In fact, I want to suggest that probably the first time that this happened was when Cain killed his brother. Innocent man. He did nothing wrong. They had just finished leaving church and they was out in the field. Cain went to kill his brother. And the text says, this thing makes me get so teary-eyed. It says the blood from Abel went up and cried unto God. The very blood cried. Whenever somebody is killed innocently, the blood cries out to God. And as a believer, you ought to get upset about anything that God is upset about as well. And when Christ came on this earth, first thing he said, in early church was, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to set captives free, not make them bound. So I know I said a whole lot. I'm trying to be succinct, but to answer your question, to be silent about what the Bible speaks up about as a believer is to commit malpractice. And your life, something needs to be taken. I don't know what it is, but I'm saying to not speak up about what the Bible is clear. Now, there's some gray areas, there's some ambiguity that we won't find out until we see God face to face. But this one thing I know that the Bible speaks up about: when you're killing innocent people, and when you continue to promote and uphold a systemic system that oppresses people, God is not pleased about that. And to not speak up about that is to commit malpractice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. As we get ready to bring this conversation to a close, and I can listen to each of you gentlemen all night long talk, man. You guys are incredible. I mean that from the most authentic place in my person. But I want to leave us, or I want us to end with this, kind of talking about this last thing tonight, and that is, for the first time in the history of this nation, we have seen simultaneously all 50 states protested at the same time. Even the states me and you, Bishop, talked about this, even up there in Maine with the 7 black people. It ain't all 7 black people protesting. You got a bunch of white folks out there. I know my biological, my father participated in a protest just this weekend. He said it was almost 85, 90%. And so, having said that, I want to just end with this saying, with all the protests and the anger, understandably, and all the dialogue that we're having, all the potential possibilities, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? And I want to just toss that to each of you gentlemen as we end tonight. Dr. Davis, you kick us off. Where do we go from here, sir?
I think in many ways, protest is a natural response, almost a conditioned response of people to respond to this negative stimulus in a way that gives you, where we go into motion. Even an amoeba does that. I put a negative stimulus on that amoeba, it'll move away from the stimulus or move somewhere else. So protest in and of itself is motion without real displacement. I think that where we go here is the dangerous part. This is where the protest is not the most dangerous part. Recall that what got Martin Luther King killed was when he started connecting the struggle of black people to the military-industrial complex and a war that was going on, an unjust war that was going on. And when it was okay in some parts for him to talk about the fact that black people need to be treated better, people could buy into that. But when you start attacking, when you start getting to the core of this thing, we start digging at some dollars that go into the military and support all these pockets. He had to go because he had left the bound that the society was comfortable with this black creature being in. The dangerous part is when we start speaking out at the core of this issue. Who is benefiting? Where in corporate America is this benefit happening? Who benefits from militarizing police? Why do you select closing? Why do you select buying one more aircraft carrier when you could take that money and provide health care for all? When you could fight one less war and fund school systems. Not just, the system is willing to actually cannibalize some of its own in this, because poor whites are also getting duped agenda, clearly articulated about what we want. We can no longer, we can't march and then stay on the sidelines in the political process. You ain't voted, don't go out and march. Stay home. Because what's, you're missing on a right that was given to us, that wasn't given to us, was earned by blood for us. If you're in a community, you haven't attended a school board meeting, if you have not attended and spoken out at a council meeting, I think this is the space, and this is the dangerous space right there. Because at some level, we have got to get the priorities of this country shifted and focusing on the most important thing, which are the people.
All right, sir. Power to the people. All right, I'm going to pass it next to you, Elder Vanderhorst. Where do we go from here, sir?
It's my belief that, I like what Dr. Malana Karenga said. He said, we may never have an ideological unity, but what we must have is an operational unity. We're not a monolithic people, so therefore, we're socialized differently. We come from different places and spaces, so we may never have an ideological unity, but that operational unity is what's important. So this is where I believe we must start. Humanity must be the center and ground of what we are to be. I prayed and I asked for this, and I believe that this is something that we need. We must have a profound appreciation for the humanity of all people, regardless of how they self-identify. So that operational unity can be beginning with humanity, the sanctity, the appreciation, the respect for humanity, because when it is not that, then it is the inhumanity of man against man. So therefore, humanity and that operational unity can revolve around there. And finally, because that question is like a diamond. It got so many cuts on it, man. So many different cuts, But I would say this finally, with humanity being foundational, and that includes people who are not believers too. There is still humanity that people can have a respect for, you see. But I do also believe that the ripple effect, we have to start in our families. We have to start in our friend groups. We have to start in our social networks and let this thing ripple out. Our hard conversations, and so forth. We need to begin to address and deal with things till we come to some cogent understandings, until we come with some right definitions. For example, one brother gave the tightest definition I ever heard for anger. He said, anger is a natural response to a blocked goal. I said, wow. So when I'm dealing with people, I don't even deal with the feeling and the emotion of anger. I'm trying to drill down to see what are the blocked goals. And then I address those, and then we deal with them. And so, but the ripple effect, we have to start among our own. All of nature functions from center to circumference, from the inside out. The very principle within the seed that when it breaks out, you get the blade of grass or the ear of corn. We must start from center to circumference, from our family, our friend group, those in the sphere of our relationships, our affiliations, and we ripple out. Yeah.
That's a mic drop right there.
Right.
Man,
Let's give it a benediction.
Preacher, Pastor, you never a man that's short for words, so you got something for us to hang our hats on tonight as we get ready to wrap this thing up, man. Where do we go from here? What say you, sir?
So listening to, I appreciate all these brilliant gentlemen that's on this live tonight. There's an education theorist by the name of Jack Mezirow who built his theoretical approach off of andragogy, adult learning, and he developed the theory called transformative learning. And for transformative learning is experiential learning. He posits that in order for learning to occur, there first has to be a disorienting dilemma.
Wow. Wow.
So here we are in a disorienting dilemma and the outrage of protests, which ironically, the country was formed on protests. So the conversations are being had, whether they're small pocket one-to-ones, the conversations are being had. As Pastor Eric shared earlier, I am really keen on giving the problems back to the students. I got 99 problems. Racism is not one of them. Racism is not as a black man, it's not my issue. So I like what Reverend Davis was saying. Where do you see yourself working with it? Giving it back to them, giving it back to the persons who are inquiring about what to do and how to do it. How do you see yourself using your privilege? And can you own your privilege now? I have a good friend, and I'm going to digress in 1 second. I have a good friend who works in the professional world. And he says, my job is, as a professional, he's a black man, to remind white people that I'm black. So I think we're on to something. We're on to this social vaccine that needs to take place in our community and in our world by having these conversations, by broadening in the religious work, our theology and our ways of thinking about God, ourselves, our family, our community, and the world at large. So I think we're on to something, and Elder Vanderhorst said it best. It's a ripple effect.
All right. Pastor Washington, you got the last word tonight.
May the Lord watch. I mean, what can I say? May the Lord.
What shall we say?
What shall we say? I mean, where do we go from here? One of the fundamental principles I live off of my life is this quote that I use often, which is your greatest place of pain is the purpose. And while I believe that protests should be done, we got to take that and go a step further. So two things I want to posit. The first one is what Vanderhorst said, and that is a reorientation or orientational education within our families, particularly for the next generation, and informing them. One of the things that I've been doing, though I'm an extreme extrovert, I will say the blessing of this has been the time with my family. This was really gearing up for a very busy year of travel, and this quarantine sat me down, and it's been really a great experience. My son turned 13 on Sunday. That was the best Father's Day ever, and it's just been a great opportunity. One of the things I'm discovering, though, is this generation did not really grow up seeing a lot of this racial injustice. So there's some names in Black history that they're just ignorant of, that they just don't know because it has not been a part of their matriculation, except if they got it from home. One of the things we've been doing on a regular basis, son, daughter, come sit down. We need to watch this because they need to be informed about what America really is. When my son was born, early year, we had President Barack Hussein Obama. That was the president. That was his initiation to the world. And so his first perspective is, we got a black man in the office, and I'm like, son, this ain't what it is. Calm down, brother. This is not what it is. And so it's so crazy. We could be watching the news, and every time I think he lives there, the resident in 1600 Pennsylvania, really Black Lives Boulevard now. Every time he comes on camera, my son does one of these. Not this again. He can't stand, because now he's starting to understand, brother, this is not what it is. And I think that's coming with education. We need to educate the next generation so that they're more informed. Second thing I want to say is, we need to do a better job in the Black community of being informed. Doc Davis, I want to echo, some of what he was saying. I don't understand meeting people of color who do not vote. Who are not registered for the census. I don't get it. Somebody, please, I don't understand it. But then have all this mouth about what needs to be done and what should be done. The first thing in order to change things is you need to go make your voice heard. And when you go make your voice heard, don't just go click buttons like you playing the game, like you playing Candy Crush or something. You need to be informed about who you're actually voting for. I want to say, Vanderhorst said it, when we talked about defunding the police, there's things behind that. So when you talk about who's going to be your sheriff for the county, we vote those people in. And then you get upset when things happen. So we got to do a better job of being informed about who we're putting in office. We have the right, and we're not using the right.
All right.
Real quick, I have to say this. Shout out to Bishop. You ain't the only black man in Maine. My parents actually met at a 4-year college in Maine. The school is closed now, but the city was called Houghton, Maine.
That's not far, yeah.
Yeah, that's where they met, Houghton, Maine.
But they got 3 black people up there.
Well, they ain't play no more, so. Yeah. Hooker College.
Yes, I hear people talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I just want to say again, thank you so much for lending your time, your expertise, and informed opinions this evening. I know that my mind was blessed tremendously tonight, and I thank God so much for that. In the words of my main man, my son, he said, this is Black excellence. This is Black brilliance, Black power, resilience. And I see a plethora of that tonight. And I thank God for you gentlemen tonight. Listen, everybody, we're going to have to conclude our conversation for the evening. We want to thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast of the Life Church today. We want to invite you to be a blessing to the ministry as we seek to bless those who are in need right now. We're still in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. We're trying to get supplies to those who are in need. As Dr. Davis said, we still got to wear our masks, hand sanitizer, gloves, all those things to keep you safe. Basic supplies, toilet paper, water. If you need anything, hit us up.
Wow. I was there. And yet watching it here on this screen, it brought so many emotions, just awe, listening to just such articulation and intelligence. And just tears came to my eyes just to reflect on so many experiences and just how far God has brought us in our journey here in America. Just truly a blessing it was to be in the number. All right, everybody. Before we go, Lupita is going to bless us again with another song. And then after that, we're going to give you our announcements for this week. So we want you to stay tuned for just a few short minutes before we get out of here today. Lupita, bless us now in song. All right, here we go, everybody. All right. I'm trying to get there. All right, here we go. It's coming. All right. I hope it's coming. There we go.
We're just going to continue in our worship as we declare that we just want to sing praises to our God's name. So continue worshiping with us. Just lift your voices and sing this worship along with us. Say, we sing praises to your name. We sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. We sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. We give glory to your name. Oh Lord, glory to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised.
Thank you, Lupita and family. We want to send you out today with the following points of information as we remain connected to one another. So check this out. By the way, shout out to Nathan for putting this together with such creativity. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing this for us. All right, everybody, be blessed as we get ready to go today. Please listen up.
As the state of Maryland continues to proceed with reopenings, we want to let you know that as of now, we will continue to operate exclusively online. As we continue to follow the leadings of God's Spirit and the latest scientific data, we will let you know if and when things change. In the meantime, we want to say thank you to those of you who have continued to generously give to our ministry. Because of you, we have been able to provide necessary help to countless people in our community. Indeed, it is a blessing to be a blessing. If you know of someone who needs assistance or you yourself need support, please email or text us at the information listed on the screen. BeMoreLifeChurch@gmail.com or text 443-620-3156.
Attention, all children and parents. We know that this has been a particularly challenging time for you. That's why we want to help. If you want a cool and safe place for kids to come to learn, connect, and grow, please email us at BeMoreLifeChurch@gmail.com so that we can get you connected with our children's church.
Are you inspired to go deeper in God's Word? Wednesday nights in the Word is just for you. Join us for our brand new reformatting of our Wednesday weekly worship time. We will absolutely still feature prayer as a part of our time together, but we are also adding time for us to study God's Word. Our time this summer is 8 p.m. Visit our Facebook page or website for more details. And as always, it's a pleasure to have you join us virtually today. Remember, on behalf of the Life Church, that God loves you so much. We're praying for you, and we hope to meet you right here this time next week.
All right, everybody. Thanks for worshiping with us today. We love you, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. God bless you, everybody.